Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Halloween Caesar review. Today, I am reviewing First and Roll. This may sound a little bit familiar, as it is a newer. I was gonna say dice version, but the original version had dice too. So, what's the deal? What's the difference? This is the R&Rs. This is a game published by R&R Games and designed by Stephen Glenn. And this has been out for a while, actually, and pretty popular sport game for the game of American football here. And it was really, really cool. And so I was very intrigued to check out First and Roll. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the components here, talk about what I like, and some of the other elements of it. Maybe do a little comparison to the original, just so that you can kind of know the difference between the two, and which may be a better fit for you. So again, this is First and Roll. It says 2 to 4 players. You can have one person kind of play offense and one defense for the different teams, which is perfectly reasonable way to kind of break this up. But it's similar to for me. I look at like Star Wars Rebellion as another one of those games where it's like 2 to 4 players, but really I think it shines and really feels like a 2 player game. You can play this 4 players if you need to, and people are really kind of getting into that. But again, you're gonna have someone not doing something for a little while. So I think it really just is more of a 2 player game, but 14 and up. The game is pretty simple, but there is a lot of kind of nuanced things to remember. So it's one of those things where I think kids could easily play this. There's nothing like, content wise, like mature content in here. It's football. But there is kind of a lot going on with the game. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit. But so as far as components go, everything fits in the box well, which is great. The rule book instruction has a summary of everything that comes with the game itself, and it's well done. It covers everything that it needs to, and it makes sense, and it's got all of that. The thing that I wish that they included in here that's missing for me is like simple one sheet player summaries. It could have been printed on, just something like this. Just didn't even need to be cardstock. Something really simple that had like references and highlights these rules. Because honestly, I need to check Board Game Geek actually, because I would imagine someone has created an all reference sheet that for people. I think that would help out a lot, especially in the first games. Like the first few games, it was kind of like, okay, wait a minute, what do we do with that thing, or how does that work? The board itself has some references here to remind you for like kickoff, onside punt. But it's like, what about the punt return? Well, it has some of their. So there's some references here on the board itself, which are very helpful, but it's not everything that I feel like needs to be referenced. And so it's kind of a minor thing, but yeah, that's that. The board. Oh, the board. Wow. So the board had some of the components here sticking to it because the board is magnetic. And if you've never held a magnetic board before, you're in for a surprise because it is hefty. I mean, you think about magnets. It is a hefty board. Um, but it's great. It's a great looking board. So component wise, you get here. This is just the black there. You got it here. It lays well, and it's magnetic. Oh, it's so cool and it's so crazy. So we got some of the other components here. I'll show you. You have like this cool first down marker. also magnetic with the little football. And look at the detail that they got on this thing. Pretty awesome. And it is also has a flat bottom here because it's magnetic. It works really, really well. It's a simple thing, but I feel like the cost of this game is the magnetic board. All of this is magnetic, which is just crazy to think about, right? Like it is a huge magnetic board here. But I think it really makes the game right, with this. So this very useful first down marker is great to track the downs. And the football itself, the way that the board is designed, you actually have downs. So this is first down. If I do a play, gain a couple yards, then this row right here, I shift and now it's second down, and now it's third down, and then it's fourth down. Oh man, am I going to go for it or punt at this point? Or do I try to go for that? If I get it, then the marker, the football comes down to the first down again, and I can move the first down marker. It's very, very, very cool as far as, thematically looking at this. But it also just works really, really well. And so this is something that came over from the First and Goal, the original game. A very similar board if you're looking at this. Very, very similar. One of the main differences is the play clock here and how it manages time compared to the other game, which had cards and it was kind of managed through some of that. This one has two halves, and the time element is going to come up here with one of the dice that's rolled. Whenever this clock comes up, the time is going to progress on there. Okay, so we have the board, the magnetic board. We have the magnetic first down marker, the magnetic football, the magnetic time marker. So we got all sorts of that. This is where like the components, awesome. And then we have the components for tracking timeouts and the actual score. And they're just simply these little black magnets. And I don't know, I just came across a little disappointed with the black magnets because in First and Goal, in the original game, you didn't have magnets. It was clear plastic things. But I mean, to me, that was a little more useful just because I could see what was underneath that, right? I mean, in relation, you don't need to see. You can still see the other elements to this, but I don't know. I wish that they included like a magnetic like frames or something that I could move and have it like outlined. Instead, we have these little black things that it's kind of like, oh, this is a 10. I'm at 11. And I don't know. It's just not very visually great, I think. So that's component quality. It was kind of a misstep, I think, or a missed opportunity with the timeouts and the score tracking with the magnets. It's kind of like, oh, we'll just include these magnets. I don't know. I feel like some frame thing would have been much better. But anyway, sorry, I'm talking about these magnet things for so long. Let's get at actually the other components here, the dice, because this is a dice game. And there's included coin, so to speak here, a little plastic thing with heads and tails to see who goes, who chooses if they want to receive or kick off first. And then we have the dice themselves. Let's go ahead and show you those. These are great quality dice. So looks like they're just printed on there, but all the numbers show up really well. Very clear. This one here has a little bit of kind of a more of an etched with paint in them. But they all are great quality dice. I really like them. I think they work really, really well for the game. The gameplay itself is pretty simple when it comes down to the actual gameplay and the running of things. Basically, you have the offense here has a green die, and the defense has a green die. Offense, defense, red die. You have a yellow offense, defense die. And you have a kind of what's simulated as a running die, so you're going to have less yardage on the red die. And then you have a pass slash run, which is kind of your medium yardage. And then you have your pass plays, which is very substantial yardage compared to the other ones. And what's going to happen is the offense is going to choose die, the defense is going to choose a die. If it's the same, then you're going to have the defense always rolls this die, and it simulates the time moving forward. If it comes up with nothing, then we're not going to move the time. If it comes up with the time's going to progress on. If it comes up with a turnover, then we have to re-roll it. If a second T comes up, that means there's a turnover of the ball, and so switches offense, defense. So there's something there. There's other ways to have penalties. If the defense chooses the same die as the offense, then they also get to roll with this dice their die. So if you have the offense roll, they're going to have a gain of 7 yards. Defense rolls, look, dun dun dun, penalty. So we got to roll the penalty die and figure out what's going to happen here. And we can have, 5-yard penalty on the offense, defense, those sort of things. And so that impacts the gameplay. If, and we'll see, this also has negative. So it can be like, oh, well, they gained 1 yard. It could also just gain of 0. It could also have it so they lose a few yards. So the die is corresponding with that. These offense dies also have circles, and if they have a circle, a breakaway can occur, and they get to roll that die again. So now not only was it 10 yards, but it's 17 yards. But if that dreaded flag comes up, man, it may be on them, and they may not have. They may need to replay the down, whatever it is. And so you still have all of those elements, and that's where the complication of the game comes in. Is just those little nuances of, okay, it's a penalty. Okay, we roll the penalty die. Do I want to accept the penalty or decline it? And all of those sort of things are all in here. And so everything's captured. We can have, touchbacks, and we have, you can do an onside kick instead of a regular kickoff. All these football terms, if you're not familiar with football, you can still play this game. But there's all these terms and all these nuances in here that you're probably not going to fully understand unless you play this through a few times, and even then. So I imagine if you're getting this game, you enjoy football to some degree and are familiar with it. But that's the basic gameplay, though. It's very, very simple of choosing a die. If the defense chooses the same die, they get to roll it. If not, they don't get to roll a die at all, other than this one here. And time's either going to march on, or they're going to have nothing happen, and they get 11 yards. They move the football, the 11 yards, and continue on from there. But yeah, so there's all these little nuances, though, of even being in the red zone, being close to the goal. If you go over your amount, it's going to be an incomplete. So you have to, once you get close, it's one of those things where it kind of, to signify it getting harder, but again, you don't want to, it's not like you can just I need 5 yards and I'm going to roll this green die and go 12. So to help mitigate some of that, you're not going to be rolling the green die as you get close in here, right? You're going to be rolling yellow or red. I think it all works though, you know. So me and my wife, when we first played this, it had been a long time since we pulled out First and Goal. Um, and we got into it again. That first game, especially, there were quite a few times still that we were trying to and re-looking some things up just to ensure that we were playing things correctly. Um, but it was really, really fun. And we actually played this. We played this while watching a real college football game. And what was amazing is I was kind of representing one of the teams that we were watching. My wife was representing another team. And our game on First and Roll ended up being very, very similar to the actual game we were watching. It was only off by like 3 points or something like that. So it was kind of crazy. But there's some really, really fun things in here. I like the simplicity of the dice. It makes it very, very quick. Um, the only thing that slows it down again is some of the nuances, but I think as you play it more, you're gonna just know how everything works. You're just gonna get really familiar with that. And to help mitigate that, I think either creating your own or finding one on Board Game Geek or something like that, that just would have all of the nuances and the rules on one sheet that you could just hand, each player can have and reference throughout the game, I think would help a lot. Again, there's already some references, so you wouldn't need to include those because they're already on the board. But yeah, and the only other thing here is like the secret dice choosing, you know, just go under the table or something and then pull it out. So there is kind of just that element of you just need to hold them out of view as you're choosing the dice. But yeah, it was great. Our game had turnovers. Honestly, it had some penalties too. Not too many, because again, the only way a penalty is coming up is if the defense chooses the same die and they're able to roll that. And so there's the thing where it's like, oh, chose the wrong die. Oh, I chose the wrong die again. And as a defensive player, it can be pretty frustrating because the only way that you are mitigating any of that play is with a defensive die. On this die, a turnover could come up, which is like one thing you're like, okay, yeah, hoping for that. But if you roll it again and you don't get a turnover again, it doesn't happen. So then the opponent moves 12 yards and move on. And so I was a little nervous as we were playing. I was like, oh man, if as a defensive player, I don't get to roll a die half the time. If I keep choosing keep choosing incorrectly, that's really not fun. But I was amazed because as we go, it was fun. Like it was like, oh shoot, yeah, I didn't get to roll that die, but maybe there's a turnover and there's different elements to it. And so I actually really enjoyed my time with First and Roll. I think it plays really well and it's kept fairly simple, other than some of the nuanced stuff that, again, I think you just need to get more familiar with. There's a long bomb, which is possible. That's like the last. It can only happen like if the time marker's here. It's kind of a last ditch effort to score, which is kind of cool. Reminiscent of kind of the Hail Mary play stuff from the original. But really, really fun little game centered around American football. And I think it works really well. It can be a little lengthy depending on how this time marker shows up. You know, it's on this 8-sided die here, and it's on there 3 times. So it's really kind of interesting because you could have a half where you roll and you get those a lot, or you can play a half where you're just rolling and it goes pretty quickly. So it's really kind of an interesting mechanic there. The insert, oh, look at this insert. It's like, it works. And again, you're going to open it up and be like, wait a minute. You may open it up and be like, wait, this is it? This is the game? it's a lot of dead space as far as that goes. But as I mentioned before, magnetic board. Magnets are expensive. We all know this. It's really cool. The dice mechanics of it, really simple. And yeah, so I've enjoyed my time with First and Roll. If you're looking for a fun game that's centered around football, this may be one that you want to check out. First and Roll. Now you're maybe saying, okay, what's the difference between First and Roll and First and Goal? I'm not going to get into this a lot, but First and Goal has a little bit more to it. Now, I took out the insert for this game because I have all 6 of the expansions to this game, which that's one thing that's missing from First and Roll is that there are no expansions, which I'll get to in just a second. But you'll see here the board again, it's very similar, should look very similar. It's also magnetic, very hefty. The dice here a little bit different. So these are all kind of etched in dice, but we have our first down marker and the football, which are magnetic again still, but this one has cards. And so what's interesting with the card element to it is instead of just picking the dice and choosing, hey, I want to use, red, green, or yellow, the offense and defense each have a deck of cards, and they have some cards in their hand, and they have to choose a play. And then depending on, if I choose this goal line play, this is for the defense here, depending on what the offense chose, and it will show me directly on the card, I'm going to roll, or different dice are going to be rolled, right? So if they do this, I'm going to be rolling 3 defensive dice and the penalty die with that. I'm going to be rolling those. Or you can say, if I did goal line run defense and they're doing a bomb, man, they get to roll all sorts of yardage dice to help them get there. So this one, it's a lot more nuanced here with possibility as far as like choosing actual plays instead of just like a run or short. You have more options and more variability in what sort of dice are rolled. So it's a little bit more strategic, and you're still rolling dice, right? So you still have the dice element to it, but not quite as much. Like in First and Roll, you were very heavily reliant on those dice, and those bad rolls can just hurt and hurt and hurt. This one, it sets it up a little bit more with the defense and offense with the cards element and using the dice there. Other than that, the biggest thing, honestly, is really the expansion. So what was cool with First and Goal, I thought, was that you could get these little expansion packs. And in the original game, the offense, defense, you're playing with the same dice that you're rolling each time, same cards. The expansions change the dice that are rolled for each team. So what's really cool here is they can manipulate the dice for each team so that you have teams that maybe are really, really good at defense, and their passing is okay, maybe almost average, and they just really don't have a good running game. And maybe be playing the Knights, who have an excellent running game and they're pretty great at passing, but their defense is really lacking. And so you can have these they have these different divisions here that you can have these different teams, and you have tournaments, and you can really get into it. So if this is something that looks, First and Roll looks really interesting with, the dice rolling and kind of those mechanics. This just builds on that, right? So it's a lot more to it with the cards here. And then if you get the expansions, you actually are changing what's possible with those dice so that you can either get, a lot more defense or better in passing or better running, or you can be kind of, a team that's going to be down the middle. They had fun with the teams here as well. Milwaukee Monsters, the Louisville Locusts. And so they had some really fun with just creating these different teams, the Salt Lake City Shakers. And so some really kind of cool elements that just add to an already fun game. Like I like football. I'm not a huge sports person. I don't like follow many teams, but I enjoy watching games, and it's fun. And First and Goal is an excellent football board game. And there's definitely a lot to it. If you really want to get into it, there's all those expansions. If you're looking for it and it's like, oh, that does look pretty cool, but you want to keep it a little simpler, um, this does that. It simplifies First and Goal to simply choosing those dice and you're rolling it back and forth. Makes it a little bit quicker, and it's really fun. And so that is R&R Games, First and Roll. Go ahead and check that out if that's something you're interested in. And that is how Lou sees it.